Hey gang, Ronan here. And as you can see in this game, I'm playing the Tier 7 Commonwealth Cruiser Uganda. And, first, I guess I should start with, these are basically the same guns that you have on the Tier 5 in this line. Now, when I played the Delhi at Tier 5, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun ship to play. But at Tier 7, the same guns that you have at Tier 5, they really do not cut it at all. And that's why I refer to this ship at this point, instead of Uganda, as Uganda, because it is very to play. And it's not a ship that I would recommend spending a lot of time in, because it is very, very frustrating to play. So what can I tell you about it? Well, as I mentioned, the guns are the same as Tier 5, and that's a pretty big deal. But you add to that the fact that it really doesn't have any armor to speak of, and it's just as squishy as, well, any other light cruiser. And you are a favorite target of pretty much anything. I mean, even destroyers will want to fire at you. So we'll take a look at the main battery, and I'll give you the rundown on that. Let's see, out of the 15 available Tier 7 cruisers in the tech tree lines, where does this ship fit in terms of AP, DPM? Well, comes in 6th. And there's a big difference from the top. Top, of course, is Helena at 338,000 plus AP, DPM. Uganda, 233. So it's down there quite a ways. HE, let's take a look at the HE DPM. Well, Helena tops the score there as well, and Uganda is 4th. Now, Helena's HE DPM 232 plus thousand, and the Uganda 171,000 plus. Now, what am I doing here in the game? Well, I'm trying to position myself to be able to make use of the hydro potentially. If the plus sign vanishes, I may be able to pop my hydro, spot whatever is there, and it's the only destroyer in the game is Kitakaza, which actually I think probably outguns the Uganda just in terms of the sheer number of shells and the damage output. So I don't want to get into a pissing match with the Kitakaza at point blank range. It has better hard-hitting torpedoes and it has better guns. The only advantage I would have is the hydro, but it's only a 4-kilometer hydro with regards to ship detection. So I'm going to go ahead and smoke up here and try and get guns on the Helena, which I expect to come around the corner. Now, why did I smoke up? Well, 2 reasons. One, there may be something headed for this center area besides just the Helena. There's also probably something on my starboard side. If you look at the mini-map there at like Foxtrot 6, I do manage to get a few shots into the side of the Helena here, but you can get an idea of kind of how lackluster this AP is. It's just really not that good. I mean, that's a Tier 7 light cruiser, and it's doing next to nothing. Now, our Helena gets finished off early, and I've switched to HE. Even that, not all that effective. Now, I'm going to start reversing here because I expected a torpedo attack from one side or the other. I'm just going to make sure I don't push the tail of the ship into a rock and then eat a torpedo as a result. Let's see if I can get a fire burning on Takao. Those, of course, are more than likely Takao torpedoes. Now, getting back to the guns. So the AP damage, not great. Penetration values, not great. HE damage, not great. Yeah, they're Tier 5 guns. Really disappointing. Now, a little bit farther in the line, you shift from 152s to 203s, but of course then you have a longer reload, so it remains to be seen whether or not there's actually any measurable sense of advantage to the increase in gun size that this ship or that this line picks up later. And it looks like I'll be able to avoid all these torpedoes, so I'm going to go ahead and start pushing back the other way a little bit. Okay, so the AP shells, we'll just take just sheer damage output. Well, the top of the line is the York with 5,600 potential AP damage per shell, and Uganda's 2,850. So
received. I'm on it.
A little bit more than half. I mean, just a very small little bit more than half. of what the York can put out. And, you know, then get Zara and Asturias and Algeria all at 4,800, Miyoko and all the Miyoko clones at 4,700, New Orleans 46, Surrey 45, all the way down to Uganda, which is second from the bottom at 2,850 AP damage. It's really bad as I try to help out against the Kitakaze here, and I'm moving forward enough to be able to use this smoke from the Kitakaze to stay invisible. And I'll keep checking around. I want to make sure I don't get myself spotted by somebody else, but you can see that battleship that could potentially spot me is behind an island, so I'm okay there. And I'll just keep trying to land shells on Kitakaze. I was hoping for fire, but did not pick one up. So I've landed 46 shells, 49 shells, less than 21,000 damage. And that is, at least in my opinion, going to be a consistent experience when you're up tier. Now at this point, we are down Atollan and Helena. The red team is down Rook, Helena, Shores, and Kitakaze. So things are looking pretty good for us. And I actually pull a really bonehead move in this ship, you know, just a little bit as I try to get outside of radar range there. I get myself boxed in between some islands, and this ship does not handle well. It really doesn't. It's a little bit like trying to get the Fiji to move quickly. It just doesn't. The turrets are slow on this ship. The turret traverse is, of course, glacial, and then the ship itself is not all that maneuverable. The rudder shift time is not fantastic. It's ungainly. It's not, I don't believe, a good tier 7 ship. It's not something that I would ever say, oh yeah, you're going to want to spend some time in this thing. You're just going to want to play this just because it's fun. I did not find it fun at all, which is such a shock because I was really, really hopeful after playing Delhi at tier 5. Okay, so the torpedoes, well, you know, you might say, well, this got longer range torpedoes. Isn't that a little bit of an advantage, Ronan? You know, what do you have that's bad to say about the torpedoes? Well, I don't really have anything bad to say about the torpedoes. Let's take a look at the torpedo damage per minute. Well, that's pretty solid, I guess, at 50,875, until you realize that's the lowest of the 12 tier 7 cruisers that actually have torpedoes. That's right. Miyoko, 163,000 plus, York, 145,000, Chumphon, 88,000, Amono, 83, Surrey, Fiji, Bolognese, all at 79, Asturias, 71, Shores, 71, Zara, 64, Algeria, 59. And at the very bottom, Uganda with 57. Now it has 12 kilometers range, but you know what? So what? Amono has 13 kilometers range. It does 25,000 more damage potentially in a volley of torpedoes. Miyoko has 10 kilometers rather than 12 and does roughly 3 times as much damage potentially. And yes, Miyoko is very squishy, but I can assure you, so is Uganda. And at this point, I'm trying to do what I can here. I'm not exactly in the middle, but I'm trying to slow down this push across the map from the battleships as I just kind of cross my fingers and hope not to get blapped. Oh, I managed to finish off the Victoria as the Sinop turns to avoid the other torpedo that I was really hoping would land. Well, what about the anti-aircraft suite, you might ask? Well, is it good? Is it effective? Well, what is really, if we're being honest? It's kind of in the same range as all the other, but it's toward the bottom of that range. Your flak DPS is 1190. The bottom is 1120. The top is 1470. That's the Chumphon. So I'm doing what I can here to light some fires, but you can see there's not going to be a whole lot of damage from these shells because they're 152s. It's just, can I get some fire started? And now I'm starting to take some fire from Kutuzov. Now this game is looking more and more like it's kind of in the bag, and I'm really kind of hoping to get the last shot on this setup because I don't think he is going to be able to survive what he's pushing into. And he's got a Tago out there that's going to be laying some shells on him. I'm not going to be able to get torpedoes on him, as you just saw. Try and get a fire on the nose. Time for me to start turning around the other way. I don't want to get squared off with Kutuzov because Kutuzov can just absolutely shred this thing. And I am detected briefly. I started moving away because I didn't want to stay in sight. The Sinop would absolutely wreck the Uganda. Now I'm going behind an island. You can see how slow the turret traverse is. I can't get the front guns around. So frustrating. And Otago burns down the Sinop. Good for you, Otago.
Our team has taken the lead.
Well, so right now it's 6 ships to 3. The game's kind of in the bag, and this is the blunder that I make. I have to admit I was a little bit frustrated here at the ineffectiveness of the ship. I mean, 156 shells on target. I've started only 3 fires. And I landed a torpedo that got a flood. So when you subtract out the damage from the torpedo, which we'll look at here in just a little bit, the amount of damage and the total amount of damage from the guns and the total amount of damage from fires is absolutely minuscule. Now, I should have known better, and in fact, I was thinking when I was pushing up this way, this is probably a huge mistake. I don't know where Takau's at. And you're going to find out where Takau is here in just a second. And you can see the island right here on my port side as I get detected. There's Takau, basically right in front of me. This thing does not handle well, so I have to go nose into the island, trying to avoid broadside shots, which actually just makes me take a bunch of broadside shots, because this thing doesn't reverse any faster than it turns. And Kutuzov has me spotted, Takau has me spotted, I've already launched the torpedoes, and this thing takes forever to move. So frustrating. You know, a decent shot on this broadside Takau. Probably should have switched to AP, but the experience I had with the AP prior to this had me believing, you know what, why bother? I would probably do less damage with the AP, even against something like Takau. Now, I didn't make a bad drop on the torpedoes, but Kutuzov anticipated that they were coming and got out of the way. Now, I'm not going to make you watch the rest of this thing. We'll just kind of speed forward through this. It ends up being a win. You know, with 6 ships to 3, it should have been, right? I warned our Georgia about the possibility of torpedoes. He acknowledged that. He slowed down. There are the torpedoes, and we win. That was basically the game. And we'll the numbers. So I picked up 81,000 damage on 140. Now that's 95 pens, 78 non-pens. 1 torpedo hit, an incapacitation, finished somebody off, 3 fires, picked up a buff. Team score, you know, I did all right. I think I played reasonably well until the end when I made that blunder. Tip of the hat to our S-189 Florida and Hawk, and also to the Kutuzov and Takau, who played a really good game for the red team. Detailed report. Now, this is kind of where the rubber meets the road, as we say, and I'll pause it here for just a second. Well, let's get away from that. 169 shell hits, which is, what, a little over 50%? Right? So yeah, I didn't do too bad as far as landing the shells. And the same is true for the AP. 15 AP shells, 6,442 damage. That is a pathetic damage total. And especially when you consider this was, many of these AP shells were fired at a broadside Helena at reasonably close range. Right? 169 shells, 49,000 damage. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. Let's get this going. And you can see a little bit of fire damage here, not a lot. A little bit of flood damage, not a lot. Picked up, well, you know, a decent amount of potential damage, probably a lot of it there at the end when I was eating shells from Kutuzov and Takau. But you definitely have to stay hidden. This is a ship that I would really encourage you to just free XP past. And that's probably how I would feel about this line if they're like this until you get to the 203s. And I've yet to try those. And when I do, I'll be sure to make a video and share that with you. But this ship, and I think probably Hobart, which is at tier 6 in this line, they are not good. This thing was not fun to play. It was very frustrating. It felt like I was playing the game with one hand tied behind my back, because even when I placed really good shots. It did not do the damage that you would expect. And, to that I can only say, if you, don't, it's basically, if you haven't run out of things lines to run through, I would not prioritize this one. Not unless you're a glutton for punishment. End up with just some decent XP and credits, and the game itself was a good game, but definitely not a good ship, not one that I recommend at all. Thanks very much for joining me. I really hope you got something out of this. If you did, I hope you'll like and subscribe, and maybe tell a friend, and I'll see you next time.